This next video shows yet another example of how to find the range of addresses in a subnet. In this case, we'll use an example subnet of 192.168.1.144 with mask 255.255.255.240. So why should you bother with this? Well, you need it for the exam mainly, but you need to know the process to find both the subnet broadcast address and then the range of addresses in a subnet. That's pretty common when you're working with IP version 4 addresses. Then you need to practice, because of course you need to get the right answer, but you also need to get faster because the exam will have some time pressure. And then you need to practice enough until it's second nature. You really want to get past the point of having to remember every step that I talk about here in this video, and to the point where you just look at the problem, you do a little math on some paper, and you find the answer. In some ways, this video picks up an earlier example from an earlier video where we started with an IP address and a mask and calculated the subnet number. So as a brief review of some of the work there, we started with a table like this and an IP address of 192.168.1.150. We copied those numbers into the table and we calculated the subnet number. As part of that, we identified the fourth octet as the interesting octet because the subnet mask's value in that octet is neither a 255 nor a 240. And we calculated the magic numbers, 256 minus 240, which is 16. Next, let's look at how to find the subnet broadcast address. We've taken our beginning work from starting with the IP address, and now we've got a longer table. We've still got the subnet number in that third row, as you see here. Then we've left space in the table for the first IP address in the range, then the next row for the last IP address in the range, and the final row for the subnet broadcast address. And that's where we'll focus next. So to find the subnet broadcast address, we look at the octets to the left of the interesting octet, those with 255 in the mask, and we simply copy the subnet number's value. So the subnet broadcast address in this case will start with 192.168.1. There are no octets to the right of the interesting octet in this case, so there's no work to do over there. Then inside the interesting octet, we do some math. We start with the subnet number value of 144, and then we add the magic number and subtract 1. So we get 144 plus 16 is 160 minus 1 gives us 159. So our ending subnet broadcast address is 192.168.1.159. To find the range of addresses in the subnet, once you know the subnet number and broadcast address, just takes a little quick math. To find the first IP address, you copy the subnet number's first 3 octets, then you add 1 to the fourth octet. The math obviously is very simple, so you get 192.168.1.145 for the first IP address. Then for the last IP address, you copy the first 3 octets of the broadcast address, because the last IP address is going to be a pretty high number, relatively speaking. And then you subtract 1 from the broadcast address's fourth octet. In this case, it's 159 minus 1, which gives us 158, for a last IP address of 192.168.1.158. At this point, it's time to practice until you master the process. The book has some suggestions of where to get more practice. In particular, the DVD has some appendices with more practice in them. But you should indeed practice until you're relatively comfortable with the idea of looking at an IP address in mask, finding the subnet number, and then finding the range of addresses in that subnet.